Well, hi, BookTube. Bill Ruttenberg here with the Ruttenberg Library. I wanted to come to you today with a book haul. It's going to actually be the first of many book hauls. Recently, I have acquired several books in one way or another. Wasn't really necessarily planning on it, but it was good fortune, I guess. Good fortune. So recently, we were going to go. My family was going to go on a little vacation down to southern Texas to see my father-in-law, and we're going to spend a week and a half down there with him and just kind of chill out at the beach and enjoy the nice weather, enjoy the warm, the warm weather, the water and everything, and just kind of chill and take a deep breath before school gets going again. However, fortunes changed, and there was my brother-in-law had gotten into a bad accident, and so we ended up going to Colorado to help my sister-in-law watch her kids while she took care of her husband. And while I was out there, I got the opportunity to pick up a lot of books, and at the same time I got to meet up with a fellow booktuber out there in Denver, and I'm gonna kind of hold off on that info. I know she's gonna talk about it on her channel, but I'm gonna hold off on that info for right at the moment, because I'm gonna make that a whole separate video in itself, because we got to go to Second and Charles, and as advertised, Second and Charles is pretty impressive with their used books. But anyway, right now this is gonna be a collection of books that I picked up between a week and a half ago before we left and when I went to Second and Charles. So it was just a little bit here and a little bit there, and anyway, I ended up with a nice handful of books. So before we took off to Colorado, we had went and did some shopping, and we had to pick up, what were we picking up? We were picking up like some food for the road trip, so we weren't eating out all the time. We picked up some stuff to do because we weren't real sure what our role was going to be in watching the kids, if we were doing it all the time or just at certain times. And so we were kind of getting prepared for that. And so this became, like our little mini vacation. And so while we were in St. Joe, I stopped at the Jesse James outlet mall and picked up a few items. And so first of all, I got in their glass cases, and as I've shared with you before, I like Hot Wheels. And I found me a 1965 Ford Mustang, and if you're new to the channel, that was my very first car I ever owned. It wasn't cherry red, mine was midnight blue, and it wasn't a convertible either. But I have a love for Mustangs, and so I was able to pick that up, and the hood opens up. And anyway, I know this is a book channel, so let me get to the books, but I'd like to share that too. So this coming Friday, I'm going to share, it's going to be a weekly, or a Friday reads, weekly reads, but it's going to cover a couple weeks worth, because I haven't been able to do a wrap-up video or a weekly reads video for a couple weeks, and I was able to actually read several smaller books in that time period. And one of them that I did read was an Ian Fleming James Bond book. I read the very first James Bond. When I went to the Jesse James outlet mall before, I had found a whole stack of the Bond books, and I had never read James Bond. And so I just picked up the first one. I didn't want to buy them all because I wanted to make sure I liked it. And I read it, and it was all right. And so I went back, and I found 4 more that were in the same style, the same printing of book. And so the books that I found were From Russia with Love. I found Moonraker. You'll notice they're all kind of that same style of book. I kind of wanted them all to match. I got For Your Eyes Only, and The Spy Who Loved Me. Now, these books are not very long if you're familiar with them. This is Spy Who Loved Me, 143 pages. For Your Eyes Only is 143 pages. They're all about the same size, a little less than 150, each book. And so, picked those up. I think they were $1.50 each, and I'm hoping I'll like them. The first one was all right. it uses some jargon in it that I'm not usually into reading spy thrillers, so it's taking me a little bit to kind of get with the lingo. But they're quick reads, they're fun reads, and you can read them in one sitting if you've got the time to sit down for that long. So anyway, picked all those up, so I'm pretty excited about those. Those people are familiar with James Bond will know what those are all about. And another book that I picked up while I was there was a Civil War book, of course. And it was Civil War Kansas, Reaping the Whirlwind by Albert Castell. This is the authorized edition with a new preface. And this book is literally in brand new condition. I like it. It's nice and shiny. It's in good shape. It's not dinged up at all. And this is from the University Press of Kansas. And it's originally published in 1958. This printing is from 1997. But like I said, this is like brand spanking new. It's got nice photography in it. And it's all about the war in Kansas right before the Civil War. And so I'm pretty excited to get this, because when I go through this, it gets a little bit confusing at times on what was going on in Kansas, because there was so many different maneuvers in Kansas before the Civil War got started, and then as the Civil War got going. Of course, that was a territory that they had just opened it up to be a territory for potential as a state, and they were trying to figure out whether it was going to be a slave state or a free state, and that's how Civil War erupts. Both the Northerners and the Southerners tried to flood the state with voters to make sure that the Constitution of Kansas either wanted slavery or did not want slavery. And so it's like a civil war before the Civil War. And so that was a great addition to my collection. Now, like I said, we ended up going out to Colorado a week and a half ago, so on Friday. And I was very, very happy to get an email from my daughter that I had some mail. There was some books in the mail from Steve Donahue while we were out there. And so let me show you what he sent me in the mail. And I'm very, very grateful to Steve Donahue. Thank you very, very much for sending these to me. I'm tickled to death. So the first book is F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby, and it's got an introduction by John Grisham. So this is a brand new edition of this, and Steve had emailed me and said, hey, would you be interested in the Great Gatsby? It's got a John Grisham introduction. I know you like Grisham. And so I was like, yes, that would be awesome. And on top of that, The Great Gatsby is my wife's favorite book of all time. And so not only do I get Grisham, I also get The Gatsby, and it's good for both of us. And I've never actually read this before, so I'm really pumped to read it. And I think, because my wife's got a couple copies of it already, and so what I think we're going to do is, as a family, me, my wife, and my daughter are going to do a group read on The Great Gatsby, or at least I'm trying to talk them into that. And so we'll see how far that goes, and I'm going to read it nonetheless, hopefully with them. But it's a pretty short book. It's 174 pages, this edition is. And like I said, this is brand new from Vintage Books and 2021 printing. So beautiful, beautiful cover. I love that cover. The 1920s artwork. You gotta love that. Anyway, the next book that he sent me in that package, the other book, is The Failed Promise: Reconstruction, Frederick Douglass, and the Impeachment of Andrew Johnson by Robert S. Levine. And so there's that book. Very pleased to have this. This is also a newer one that's come out. It is from W.W. Norton and Company. And like I said, 2021, brand new, just came out. It's got a little over 300 pages, 312 pages. And of course, I've got a love for Frederick Douglass, I think he was a wonderful, wonderful advocate for African Americans, and just freeing himself and then working towards freeing all African Americans right there before the Civil War. And then just his outspokenness during the war to help try to bring equality between the races, and just the gap that he bridged for Abraham Lincoln and the African American leadership, and just opening Lincoln's eyes and helping him along the path to emancipation. I just think it's absolutely wonderful. And then, of course, so you got one of the greatest Americans and one of the biggest morons in American history, Andrew Johnson. Sorry, I'm not a big fan of Johnson. The more I read about him, and I've read about him in the last few books I've read, the more I read about him, the more I don't like him. Don't even get me going. That's a rant for another time. But this should be pretty good, or I hope anyway. So, the failed promise. So it's going to talk about how emancipation was supposed to bring quite a bit to the African Americans and the former slaves, and of course Johnson failed to follow through with that. And so anyway. Moving on. All right, so while we were out in Colorado, so this is stuff that we got while we were there. My wife, we were at, I think, Target or somewhere, and of course, thinking of me, she knows my my love for Hot Wheels, and so she got me a Batman car. That was pretty cool. My 4-year-old's pretty interested in it as well. And then I got to go out to a awesome comic book store. If anybody has ever went to Mile High Comics out in Denver, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you have not, and you get the chance to go, please go. It is phenomenal. The amount of comic books that they got at this place is just, it's mind-boggling. So anyway, if you follow the channel, you know I've been really trying to fill in the gaps in my G.I. Joe comics from the mid-1980s through, I think it was like 93 or 94, somewhere in there is where the line ran. And I've been filling in holes here and there in my collection. And so I found these comics to add to my collection. Now, when you see the price tag, don't shake your head at me. These were all half price. So I even went on a day that the comics in the store were half priced, all the ones with the yellow tags. And so I've already got #1 in the series, but I got this one because it's in a whole lot better shape than what mine was. So I ended up getting this for $5. So it's the first in the entire series, and it's in, I think, pretty good shape. I got let me get these in order here, number 46 in the series. And I got it for $4. Really cool. You got of course, the ninjas that were always at work, Snake Eyes, and I'm going blank on his name, but anyway, the ninjas in there. I got number 49 in the series. You got Destro right there in the center. You got number 60 in the series. Let's see, I got that number 49 for $3.50. I also got this one for $3.50. And then I've got number 62 in the series, and it was only $2.50. And these are all, in my opinion, really good shape compared to my other comic books. They're in really good shape. So didn't spend all that much money. And my 4-year-old, I've been kind of introducing her to comic books. And so she's gotten like some Mickey Mouse and some Disney Princess and, a couple comics like that my 4-year-old is kind of loud and rambunctious. She can be a chatterbox. And I'm telling you what, after we got done getting the new, I think we got 4 comics for her all together, she sat in the car totally silent the whole time, just looking at the pictures and going through those comic books. So that was absolutely cool to find maybe possibly a new love, something that we can share together. I was pretty pumped about that. While we were out there, one of the first days, what was it? Maybe the 3rd day we were out there, we went to the Barnes & Noble there in Denver, or one of the Barnes & Nobles in Denver. And I picked some stuff out of the book nook, the area that is all clearance, marked down stuff. And I picked up The Star-Spangled Banner, The Unlikely Story of America's National Anthem by Mark Ferris. And so this looked pretty interesting. And again, it was all marked down. Maybe $5, I think, is what it was. It was something like that. This is a MFJ Books out of New York, and it is from the year 2014, so it's fairly new. You know, it's I think some overstock. It doesn't have the mark on it, but I think it was overstock. And let me read the cover to you. How did one of the most controversial songs in American history become our national anthem? Why is it still controversial and still our anthem? When our author, Mark Ferris, first asked those questions, he thought he'd find the answers easily. Instead, he learned if he wanted to know the true, complete story of the Star-Spangled Banner, he'd have to write the book himself. The song became instantly popular after Francis Scott Key composed the lyrics in 1814 and stole the melody from an old British drinking song. Ironic, since Britain was the bitter enemy whose bomb bursting in air inspired him. But it also became embroiled in argument, was used and abused by politicians of every stripe, and endured a 117-year wait before it was officially anointed the national anthem in 1931. That happened because World War I veterans preferred it to other contenders, such as Hail Columbia and America the Beautiful. During the early Depression years, they lobbied Congress to formally recognize it. But they also protested massive corruption in the Federal Veterans Bureau, demanding better services and payment of their promised bonus. To appease them while avoiding doing anything that cost money, Congress passed and President Hoover signed a one-sentence bill giving the vets the anthem they wanted and nothing else. The cynical ploy didn't work. The next year saw the infamous bonus march on Washington. This wonderfully entertaining book makes the perfect read for patriots of all persuasions, as well as sports fans who think the song's final lyrics are play ball, musicians who enjoy arguing about its quality, and anyone who ever struggled to hit the high notes in the land of the free and home of the brave. Okay, so anyway, that's going to be, I think, a pretty fun book to read, pretty interesting. I'll probably learn some stuff out of that. The next one that I picked up for pretty cheap, again, I think this was one that they just had a whole bunch of extra books on hand. It's actually originally an older work, but this is a new printing of it, and this is A Study in Personality and Generalship, Grant and Lee. And it was authored by Major General J.F.C. Fuller. And so this is a new printing of that. And this one sounded incredibly interesting. It is, let's see, MJF Books out of New York. 1957 was the original print date. And so again, this is a newer printing, but 1957. So it's an older edition. But it says, let me just read the back cover here. If Lee was the greater general, how did Grant win the war? That's the question J.F.C. Fuller set out to answer when he began work on Grant and Lee more than 80 years ago, and his conclusions continue to resonate today. At the time, the conventional wisdom was that Lee was indeed the superior leader, a brilliant strategist and tactician. Grant's only advantage, it was thought, was in numbers. He had more troops to hurl at his enemy, more men to sacrifice, and was called a butcher. But as he progressed with his research, Fuller decided that the conventional wisdom was wrong. He ends up faulting Lee for lacking an overall strategy and blundering in specific battles, while hailing Grant as the Civil War's true military genius. When his book first appeared in 1933, Fuller's conclusions created considerable controversy. They still do for many. But no one denies that Grant and Lee remains one of the most readable and important accounts of a war that continues to haunt us. And so, and then of course there's a little blurb from Bruce Canton with the New York Times, and anything with Bruce Canton on it's got to be good. I'm a big fan. But I got this started. I'm on page 24. Pretty interesting piece. I'll let you know. Oh, the other book, the last book that I got from Barnes & Noble, another brand new book, obviously. I only messed up spots, the little remainder mark. But this is a honking book, as you can see. This is Grant and Lee. This is this book. This is Rising Star, The Making of Barack Obama by David J. Garrow, sorry, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but it's a honking book. This could be used as a doorstop, most definitely. It is over 1,000 pages. It's originally a $45 book, and I got it for $5. I was pretty pumped about that. It's from William Morrow, which is an imprint of HarperCollins Publishers, and it is from 2017. And I'm not going to read the stuff, the inside cover, just because it's exactly what it says: the making, or the rising star, the making of Barack Obama. So it's just about the background of what put him in the spot that he was in. But anyway, big book, big savings. Very glad to have it. And the last thing that I picked up at Barnes & Noble while I was in Colorado was from the magazine shelf. It's America's Civil War, and I love the cover. I love the painting. I love all these paintings they come up with. Doesn't matter what side. I just like I like the looks of them. And of course, if you know your history, we got Stonewall Jackson on the front. And I did end up reading this cover to cover while I was in Colorado. Excuse me, had some good stuff in it. I think maybe my favorite article in the entire thing was not necessarily, well, there was probably three of them maybe. Maybe I had more than one. My favorite one that I found just the most interesting because it was different was called Majestic Mounts. Through fire and fury, fighting men form special bonds with their war horses. And the whole article is on Civil War generals and other leaders, and just how they felt about their horses, because it was definitely a special bond between the two, much like what we've got with our dogs in our house. But you had to rely on these horses when you went into battle. Obviously this is before vehicles, so if your horse gives out, you're in trouble. And so you rely on them. You have a loyalty to them. They have a loyalty to you. And anyway, it talks about what happened after the Civil War with a lot of these. Some of these horses had pretty heroic careers, and some of these generals or their people that followed them, their kids, grandkids, made sure that these horses were idolized. Some of them, they had statues put up of the horse. Some of them, this is the one that really caught my attention, and this is Old Baldy, but they had buried this horse, but then they dug him up, cut his head off, and mounted it on the wall because of everything that he had went through, and that was George Meade's horse. And so anyway, these horses were pretty amazing animals, and very highly respected by the men who fought with them. And so I thought that was a really interesting article. They had one on the medical revolution, and this comes from the National Museum of Civil War Medicine, which I've been on their website, and I've read some stuff that they've put out, because my daughter, my oldest daughter, when she was in middle school, she did a History Day project on Clara Barton, and so we got to researching the Civil War Museum, or the medicine museum from the Civil War, and so this article really struck a chord with me. And then the other article was War at Her Door, a Southern Writer's Diary presents a vivid picture of life on the home front. And it's just all about a wife who, her husband had went off to war, and she had just married him. She had a house full of his first wife's kids, a house full of her own kids, and then he went off to war, and she had to, kind of hold down the fort while he was gone. And it's that whole story of that, and I just found it very, very fascinating. Here's another picture of her and some of the kids there. But it was a good magazine. Go check that out. Again, I got those at Barnes & Noble. So anyway, this is my book haul from the last week and a half. And I have got a couple more to do because I met with another booktuber while I was in Denver. And if you know your geography of your booktubers, you'll know who I'm talking about, who that fan of history was. But I'm going to save the suspense for the next video. So, BookTube, I hope you enjoyed this. Hope you maybe got some ideas for some new books. And thank you for watching. Hope everyone's having a great day. Enjoy the fine weather outside. And until next time, happy reading.